What makes Jon Jones so unique?
There is a dark side to Jon Jones. Jon Jones is a killer. He's a killer. When him and Cormier were in that interview, and they thought that the cameras were off.
Right.
And they start talking to each other back and forth.
I wish they would let me next door so I could spit in your face.
You know I would absolutely kill you if you ever did something like that.
You could never kill me.
Well, I bet you I could.
Then you should try, John. You really should try, John.
When it comes to MMA, there are great fighters, there are legends of the sport, and then there's Jon Jones. A freak athlete with a frame built for destruction, an IQ that outmatches just about anyone who's ever stepped into the cage, a crazy talent for violence, and a highlight reel that puts most other fighters to shame. Unpredictable, ruthless, and armed with almost any technique imaginable that made opponents question their life choices mid-fight, has been at the top of the UFC food chain since 2011. And if you ask the unlucky fighters who actually shared the cage with him, they'll tell you firsthand just how terrifying that experience really was. UFC history, the most title defenses at light heavyweight, and a resume stacked with legends. He walked through Shogun, Rampage, Machida, DC, and more, often making it look like a sparring session. His fight IQ is off the charts, his range management, creativity, and sheer violence unmatched. He's the kind of fighter who humiliates his opponents before sending them to another dimension. But then there's the other Jon Jones, the one who keeps finding ways to sabotage himself like it's a competitive sport. DUIs, hit and runs, failed drug tests, nightclub incidents, you name it, he's done it. The guy would be top dog in the How to Ruin a Legacy challenge. If there were a title for self-destruction outside the cage, Jones would have defended it a dozen times by now. And yet, every time he comes back, he still finds a way to win. And not just win, but dominate. That's what makes Jon Jones so hard to define. He's chaos and control wrapped into one. So how do you even begin to understand someone like that? Maybe by hearing from the people who actually shared the cage with him, or stood on the outside, watching greatness unfold. Let's start with someone who is outside the cage, the complete opposite of Jon Jones. We are of course talking about Georges St-Pierre, a name that stands shoulder to shoulder with the word greatness. GSP is a former welterweight and middleweight champion. He defended his 170-pound title 9 times, retired at the top, then returned after 4 years to win gold at 185. He walked through generations of elite fighters like BJ Penn, Matt Hughes, Johnny Hendricks, and Nick Diaz, and made it all look methodical. No scandals, no shortcuts, just discipline, evolution, and complete control. So when someone like GSP speaks highly of Jon Jones, it carries weight.
If you ask me in terms of where we are now, I think it's hard to find someone better than Jon Jones, man.
And that even after Jones tried to ignore him that one time,
he's here. Look right behind you, dog. Hey! This is crazy.
What a nice guy. Anyway, let's move on. If Georges St-Pierre gave you the clean, polished perspective of a champion, then this next guy brings the complete opposite, in the best way possible. Chael might not have held a UFC belt, but make no mistake, he was one of the most important voices and personalities the sport has ever seen. A top contender in both the middleweight and light heavyweight divisions. Chael nearly dethroned Anderson Silva during his prime, and later stepped up to fight Jon Jones on short notice. That alone says something. And when Chael says something, we listen. Not because he's right or wise, but because, well, it's our duty.
Is that camera big enough to take in the largest arm in Westland, Oregon that has found its way to Houston, Texas? Because that thing looks a little bit small.
Yeah, I think it is.
All right, well then we can continue.
These two faced off at UFC 159 in April 2013. Now, this wasn't your typical #1 contender scenario. Chael hadn't fought at light heavyweight in years, and he didn't exactly earn a shot through a win streak. But what he did have was a mouth and perfect timing. Originally, Jones was set to defend his title against Dan Henderson at UFC 151, but Henderson got injured just days before the event. The UFC scrambled to save the card, and Chael stepped up on short notice, offering to fight Jones with zero prep time. Bold move. But Jones declined, and the whole event got scrapped. That decision sparked a storm. Critics went in on Jon Jones, calling him scared or selfish. Dana White was furious. And just like that, the seeds for the Jones vs. Sonnen rivalry were planted. Fast forward a few months, and the UFC booked the fight anyway. This time with a full training camp and all the build-up you'd expect. Chael did what he does best. He talked the talk, built the hype, and turned it into must-watch TV. Chael deep down sorta knew what he was getting himself into.
There's been some times when I've left the locker room and known I was a lamb going to slaughter, yeah.
But once the cage door shut, it was a different story. Jones dogged on Sonnen like he owed him lunch money.
All over him right here in the first round. Jon Jones has finished Chael Sonnen.
He pushed me across that octagon like a Volvo into a Mack truck, and I started looking for a way out. That's just the truth. That was like being locked in a cage with a bear.
Our beloved DC. Even those who hated his guts had to come clean and acknowledge that Jones was just a different breed. Olympic-level wrestler, an undefeated force when he entered the UFC, and one of the most respected athletes in the sport. He was brutal, great at striking, but unbelievable at wrestling. He ragdolled champion-level opponents like they were journeymen.
Good leg kicks. Ducks under there. Yeah, he did. Look at that. And he's holding on.
By the time he crossed paths with Jones, Cormier was already a monster at heavyweight, and had dropped to light heavyweight to chase greatness. And greatness, in this case, wore the name Jon Jones. But from the jump, these two hated each other. Press conferences turned into shouting matches, face-offs turned into brawls. DC saw Jones as fake, arrogant, and disrespectful. Jones saw DC as beneath him. They finally clashed at UFC 182, and it didn't go well for DC. Jones won the fight by unanimous decision using his wrestling. Yes, wrestling to beat an Olympic wrestler. That only made the loss sting more for Cormier. But the rivalry didn't end there. A rematch came at UFC 214 and Jones did it again, this time by head kick knockout. Although that win was later overturned due to a failed drug test, the damage was done. Despite all the bad blood and the years of animosity, even DC had to admit it, Jones was special.
It hurts so bad trying to get close to him. Dude, it hurts so bad. Cause you know me, like forward, head movement. But the dude is so talented. That's what I just don't get. He kicks me. So I'm like doing the whole thing right. Opposed to him just running at me like this. I was in that press fight with Jon Jones and he headbutted me, like put his head on me. So I push him.
Let's talk about Michael Bisping. Bisping was never supposed to be champion. He was the guy who talked trash, fought everyone, and somehow always fell just short. Until he didn't. On short notice with one eye, he shocked the world and knocked out Luke Rockhold to win the middleweight title. It was one of the biggest underdog stories in UFC history. But beyond the fighter, Bisping has become one of the sport's most respected voices. He's brutally honest, doesn't sugarcoat takes, and knows what it means to face elite competition. And when he talks about the GOAT conversation, he doesn't hesitate. According to Bisping, Jon Jones is the greatest of all time. Better than Khabib, better than GSP, better than anyone. He's pointed out that while Khabib was dominant, his resume just doesn't match up with Jones's longevity, resume, or level of competition.
The GOAT is back, baby, and yes, I know a lot of people say, brother, this is Khabib. Khabib is number one, and this is number one bullshit.
This is number one bullshit.
But no, he's not, and I know that's a hot take, right? Khabib is one of the best, but Jon Jones reigned roughshod over the division for multiple generations, took out legends after legend after legend, contender after contender after contender, and then he said, my work here is done. I am moving up to heavyweight.
Now let's bring in Dan Hardy. Hardy fought for the UFC welterweight title back in the day, going 5 full rounds with GSP, which already tells you a lot. He never reached champion status, but that's not what makes his voice valuable here. because what Dan Hardy brings to the table is something else. Something most other fighters start lacking the more they fight: a brain. Hardy is one of the most cerebral minds in the sport. Few analysts can dissect a fight the way he does. Hardy has praised Jon for his adaptability, his ability to solve opponents during the fight, and how he weaponizes creativity in real time. And for his violence, most definitely his talent for violence.
There's a meanness to Jon Jones, and I'm not in any way being disrespectful when I say this, but there's a mean streak to Jon Jones that you see when he's fighting, and when he's doing his interviews he hides it. He's kind of, friendly, etc, etc, but when you put somebody in front of him, they are food. Right, he is trying to rip you apart and take bites out of you. That edge is really what makes Jon Jones great in mixed martial arts. Meanness, that clawing, posting on the face, and everything is that little edge that Jon Jones gets because you feel like you're being bullied and pushed around. Make no mistake, Jon Jones would decimate the light heavyweight division right now. We just can't underestimate that.
And of course, we can't talk about Jon Jones without mentioning his #1 fan, hype man, and part-time PR manager, Uncle Dana.
Did I mention to you guys that Jon Jones is the greatest of all time?
If there's one thing more consistent than Jon Jones breaking records, it's Dana White glazing Jon Jones every chance he gets.
Listen, it is my belief that as long as this guy is active, he's the best. He's the pound-for-pound best in the world, and he's the greatest of all time.
According to Dana, Jon isn't just the best fighter in the world, he's the best fighter who's ever lived, will live, and probably could have beaten a prime Mike Tyson with one hand. You already know the saying.
Put two guys in a room, and who comes out? Jon Jones walks out of that room every time.
Nobody loves Mike Tyson more than I do, believe me. But when you talk about putting two guys in a room, who comes out? Jon Jones has the tools to beat everybody.
So yeah, love him or hate him, there's just no denying it. Jon Jones is a once-in-a-generation talent wrapped in controversy, chaos, and highlight reel violence. A master of war and his own worst enemy. Thanks for watching.